And now this. Poor scared Corgi. I got you. I'm not going anywhere now. Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan, he's a Corgi, and today we are going to be celebrating World Animal Day, which was actually yesterday. It's October 4th. It has been celebrated since 1931. You know, a lot of us see these calendars of like, what day is it? National Hug Day, Pet Day, Love Your Dog Day, Adopted Dog Day, Cat Day, and World Animal Day, and Pizza Day, and Pie Day, and all these things. So were these all just recently invented? Were they all a ploy to get us to buy cards or do presents? No, things like World Animal Day have been around since the 1930s, and this was something that we didn't know that much about until the internet came along so that we can spread the news about these special days. So these things are not necessarily new inventions. And I don't even know for something like National Hug Day when that started, but it's been around longer than you think. So World Animal Day was first celebrated in 1931 on October 4th, which is the day it usually is. And it's supposedly a day of action worldwide to recognize animal rights and animal welfare. And the cool thing about this one is that it's a worldwide phenomenon. So, you know, for instance, I know T-Touch practitioners across the world, and you know, certainly a T-Touch practitioner would like to do something special for World Animal Day, you know, offer a discount on a first session, maybe do a talk for free somewhere for an animal group to talk about the integrity and intelligence of animals. Now, the reason that we have this special day, World Animal Day, on October 4th is because that is the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi, and that is the animal's patron saint. So one of the things I love about St. Francis, there's a great book, and it's not on the Great American Read List, and I might do actually a video plug for it. It's called Rabbit Hill. And I had pet bunnies for most of my adult life and for part of my time in high school. But even before those bunnies came along, I loved bunnies. And if you've read my book, Dances of the Heart, Connecting with Animals, there's a whole section about bunnies and the wild bunnies and the connections I made with them. So when I stumbled across Rabbit Hill in like 4th grade, I was entranced because these are not like Peter Rabbit bunnies. These are real wild bunnies. And the author, Richard, I can't remember his last name, has really imagined the world of these bunnies from their perspective. And like so many books in the older days, in the 60s, to have a book written from an animal's perspective was pretty unusual, and he was so accurate. And one of the amazing things at the end of the book is, and it really is the hallmark of the book and the end of it, is that some new people move there and they love the animals. They put out birdseed for them, they make a Christmas tree with treats for all the different kinds of animals, the deer, the rabbit, the foxes, and they also put a statue of St. Francis in their backyard. And I, who did not know who St. Francis was in 4th grade, immediately went out and read a lot of things about him. And so St. Francis has been somebody I've thought about a lot. There is a St. Francis statue that you can see, particularly going eastbound on the Mass Pike, that someone has put out on top of a hill there, really, and it was a blessing for them to have done that, to commemorate all the roadkill that we have with deer, especially at this time of year, along the Mass Pike in that area. But St. Francis is the patron saint of the animals, and often on his feast day, which is October 4th, you might find a blessing of the animals at your local church, or at somewhere, you know, in a public setting with a priest there to bless all of the animals. And that's not uncommon also to observe on World Animal Day, because it really is a time to honor St. Francis. And it was one of the first things that was a part of the animal welfare movement that was just starting. Remember, our history, the history of humans, has been plagued by treatment of anyone that wasn't a dominant white male as lesser. And to get to a point where animals and women and children were recognized as important beings with intelligence and brilliance and gifts for the world. And, you know, kids were forced into labor for a long time until people, it was Queen Victoria that really popularized the idea of childhood being a time for children to be kids. And up until then, they were just pesky little humans that required a lot of work that people didn't have time and money for. So World Animal Day grew out of this. And there's a website for World Animal Day, and they have a logo, and they really want to raise awareness of their work and raise money to draw attention to issues about animals. And they really are a group that is wanting to bring about change, particularly worldwide. So, for instance, the suffering of animals in various countries would be something that they would give attention to and pour money into to try to relieve the stress of those animals, you know, that are being hunted for their tusks, or, you know, or being, you know, wiped out for other hunting reasons, or animals that are losing their habitat in the rainforest, and certainly animals that are eaten in other countries that we don't agree with. So anyway, World Animal Day is an amazing time to fight for animal rights. So what people can do that day is popularize the idea that animals are sentient beings and that they have intelligence and that we should respect them and learn from them. And one of the messages I've had for years is that animals are trying to communicate with us. We're just so dumb and so wrapped up in our own preconceptions of what they're thinking and doing that we don't hear them, and we need to listen to them. One of the things I remember reading also about rabbits was a book, what was it called? The Secret Life of the Rabbit. It was written by a British guy who studied the rabbits in his yard, and he even made like a basement window that went out into their warren so he could watch them in their tunnels during the winter. But when you read it, because it was written in the 30s or so, it is very steeped in the culture of humans at the time, with looking at the strict roles of the Mr. and the Mrs. Bunny based on the strict roles in human culture at that time. So part of recognizing animals as sentient beings and bringing awareness to this is taking away our human bias of what we're expecting them to do. And certainly we see this in the dog world now, and even in the horse world, with all these ideas of dominance and, you know, looking at wild ancestors of these animals to say, well, this is how it was for them, and we need to, you know, be like that with our pet dogs and our horses. And that is just being disproven left and right. There's actually a great article, maybe we'll do tomorrow's Facebook Live about it, in the Whole Dog Journal, debunking a lot of this faulty research that led to these ideas of dominance. And so to be able to listen to our animals, you need to let go of the idea of dominance, because they are fully aware and capable and trying to get us to understand what they want. I mean, how many of us have a dog that sits by the treat jar when he wants a treat? I think probably everybody's dog knows where that jar is, and they know that if they go sit there long enough, one might actually come to them, because their dumb person will be smart enough to see that they would like one and recognize that they have the ability to say that they want one when they want one, and understand that. As far back as even 2003, there were 44 events being held in 13 countries, and now it's up to 1,000 events worldwide to bring about the visibility of World Animal Day. And some of the events that people do are awareness and educational events, adoption events, shelter visit days, things to raise awareness with education for children and adults, to show people that we can be more compassionate to animals and that we can treat them in more humane ways. One of my great champions is Temple Grandin, who has done tremendous work making the slaughter industry more humane. And, you know, she's done many other amazing things, but her ability to listen to animals and to understand them has really changed a generation of people. And like I said, there are animal blessing services on World Animal Day, fundraising events, concerts, walks, things like that, school events to teach younger people about animal-related issues, workshops to educate the owners of animals that are working. I have to say, recently, in the last like 10 years, I've seen service dogs really suffering because they're wearing prong collars, and I'll never forget the horror of seeing this very obese woman in an electric wheelchair that was going through mud, which she should not have been off the path, and asking a Labrador Retriever in a prong collar to pull her with his prong collar through the mud in her wheelchair. It was appalling. And other animals are working animals too. I mean, we have horses pulling carriages, not only in Central Park, but in Savannah and various parts of the South. And we need to raise awareness for them to have humane treatment. So there's workshops to educate people about that. There are spay and neuter from reduced rates, marathons at vets' offices, discussions about rabies, and rabies particularly in wild animals to raise awareness about that, radio and TV interviews with people about World Animal Day, and then also protest marches for specific animal welfare issues, or to encourage governments to introduce animal protection legislation. And when you think about this in a global way, those marches to introduce animal protection, I mean, we are so lucky in the United States that we have so many laws to protect animals, you know, some good, some bad. We certainly had plenty of times when we devastated the wolf population or the bison population, and we still are really misinformed about how we quote unquote manage wildlife. They wanted to release a bunch of endangered rattlesnakes on an island near here in the middle of our fresh water for the city of Boston, and luckily the townspeople protested heavily. But haven't we learned? We introduced rabbits into Australia for people to go hunting and ended up having to kill them with a terrible rabbit disease because the environment there was so great for bunnies that there were bazillions of them. And that's happened with other species that have been introduced into environments where they are not native, where they have just flourished, wiping out the native population. We still haven't learned. So we need to protest and bring awareness to animal rights and animal protection, and, you know, stay on top of legislation. Oh, good. Somebody says good morning to you. He says good morning. He's waiting for his TREET that he gets after this. So World Animal Day is an important time. And after research, this is how it got started. Some people went through 300 magazines from 1924 to 1936 at the Berlin Library. And they copied every article related to World Animal Day, and research at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, lugging these books around. So after the people did this research, they brought an awareness to World Animal Day. So take today as an opportunity to think about what you can do to help make the people more aware about animal welfare issues. And that can be as simple as educating somebody in the supermarket line, or somebody like that woman I saw having her Labrador pull her with a prong collar. And I have to say, some service dog organizations now, we had a woman at a T-Touch class tell us that if she ever had her dog seen without the prong collar on, they would take him from her, the service dog people that had given him to her. So this is a huge problem. These organizations need awareness. So anything that you can do in your day, even posting something on Facebook saying, I support animal rights, World Animal Day, October 4th, that would even be useful. So do what you can to help animals. We all love them and we want to support them. And they don't have words to express in a clear way for a lot of people what they need and what they want. And certainly just listening to your own animal more closely can make a difference in the lives of one animal and thereby in the lives of many animals around them. Right, Biz? Who's getting a treat now? Because he said he wants one. He's getting a big treat today, too. We had a big walk yesterday. It was gorgeous weather. Happy Corgi. Thanks for joining us. Everybody have a great